I think the most important thing I got out of today was a renewed sense of enthusiasm for union membership. You get the union newsletter and you read it, it's interesting, but this was a very purposeful day. I feel like I might have a place, I can offer something back, I think, just rather than be a reader and be a passive member. So it certainly fired me up a bit, I think. Yeah.
I see my role in the union at the moment as being an advocate for other academics like me who are either early or mid-career in their academic career. But I think one of the other things I've got out of today is this sense that my role is not just about my own membership, my own individual context, but a real sense of collegiality with my peers, but particularly with the casualised workforce and standing with casual employees at university and particularly women in that context. And standing up for sessional teachers' rights because I'm now in a position where I do have relatively stable employment, so I feel as though it's something that I can give back now, is to support the casual staff that I work with. And another thing I think is about actually trying to get more awareness around well-being in the workplace and particularly around how heavy workloads can impact on well-being, and the need for real attention to workload models and how they can be used to tackle workload issues.
Well, my role, I think, as a national councillor, as someone who's also on the branch committee and as someone who's a casualised staff member myself, I see my role to speak not just for myself but also for other casual staff whose work is a contradictory space, to make people aware of actually many of us do the same work that you actually do on a tenth of the pay. So I don't want to be treated as someone who's of lesser value. I don't want to be addressed in emails as dear casual staff member when other academic staff don't get sent emails saying dear lecturer A, dear lecturer B. I want people to be aware of how they use language to discriminate people, even if their privilege blinds them sometimes. I want them to be aware of it, because there's symbolic violence and there's the punch in the face sort of violence, and neither is something that academics can claim to have ignorance. I didn't know that this was appropriate. So I think my role is to speak up, but I also want to be inclusive. So I want to learn from these women how they do manage these tricky spaces. I don't want to be the one who's yelling and getting thrown out of places, although I do admire the people who do take up those roles, but I want to be sort of working from within with people, and I hope that multiple voices can be heard, as well as speaking back to the voices that are sort of silencing.
I see things improving, that if we have more female representation on the leadership of the Tertiary Education Union, we're not just thinking about the union members, but we're also thinking about the university sector as a whole, tertiary education sector as a whole. So this is for our students as well as our staff, and that we may be also looking at addressing the neoliberal agenda that has crept into the university system and is not necessarily leading to quality outcomes, and that this is something that I would like to see us pushing, and I think women have the strength and determination to do that.
Moving forward, I see that women can sort of tread with care. I am optimistic, but if we look to the past, change is slow, and we know, well, from my perspective as a woman of colour, of hard working class background, hard working class Uruguayan Australian background, born here from migrant background, change is slow. So I think we need to start to see at the top level of management representation of sexual diversity, of race, women's representation. These things need to be visible, not just in the branch committee level. So I think moving forward we need to work on that, and in particular for representation of Indigenous Australians. I think this is really important. So yeah, I hope to see that happen, so that there can be that role model effect where you think, well, as an institution we're working on these things and there are concrete, tangible outcomes. So yeah, that in itself can move people, mobilise people.